So in attempting to reorganize the Nazi Party, there are three methods. First, he had to increase party membership to ensure that there are, of course, more Germans inside the Nazi Party. He would establish basically a new SA or new SS, new what we call paramilitary wings, and he would, of course, use Nazi propaganda. So the first one to increase party membership was that he started to set up local Nazi parties in almost every state in Germany. So understand that Germany is a huge country with different provinces and different states. And to ensure that the Nazi party would gain greater membership, he started to have ensure a Nazi party was founded or created in every state, in every province. And he also learned that the best way was to incorporate youths inside, because of course younger minds are easier to manipulate, to brainwash, to coerce into understanding or believing the Nazi ideals. So if you were born in the 1930s, especially during this period of time, and if you're a boy, you're most likely to join Hitler's youth um, uh, organization, whereby you would learn about how you learn order, you learn discipline, very much like the UGs that you have in your CCAs now. But on top of that, you'll be indoctrinated basically to support the Nazi party and to, of course, give full allegiance basically to Adolf Hitler. So by 1933, the Hitler Youth had almost 100,000 members. And this, of course, gave the Nazi party a new membership to depend on, right? And this is how Hitler describes the Hitler Youth. These boys and girls enter our organizations at about 10 years of age and often for the first time get a little fresh air. After 4 years of the young folk, they go on to the Hitler Youth, where we have them for another 4 years. And even if they are not complete national socialists, they go to the labor service and are smoothed out there for another 6 to 7 months. Look at these young men and boys. What material! With them I can make a new world. My teaching will be hard. Weaknesses will be knocked out of them. A violently active, dominating, brutal youth, that is what I'm after. Youth must be indifferent to pain. There must be no weakness and tenderness in it. I want to see once more in his eyes the gleam of pride and the independence of the beast of prey. I will have no intellectual thinking. Knowledge is ruin to my young men. I would have them learn only what takes their fancy, but one thing they must learn, self-command. They shall learn to overcome their fear of death under the severest tests. This is the heroic stage of youth. So I think if we pause for a moment just for you guys to take in the concept what Hitler is saying here across these two sources, Hitler's own description of the youth and how he views them, you can find it's very powerful, especially during a period of time where people were directionless, where German society was looking for, a new place. If you were a parent, I think sending your child, sending your children to Hitler's youth sounds like a pretty good idea, where they would instill discipline, knowledge, courage, where weakness will be knocked out of them. I think those are things that anybody would subscribe to. And that is how he built his membership over time. The next one, of course, was that he established the paramilitary organizations known as the SA, followed by the SS, right? Now, the SA were kind of also known as the stormtroopers, and they were his private army that went around basically intimidating others, breaking up communist parties and strikes. And the whole idea was to instill a sense of fear, but at the same time, a sense that the Nazi party could provide discipline, could bring order to the streets. And these guys were like roving armies marching around in unison and actually, uh, stopping fights, breaking up other opposition party meetings so as to intimidate them to realize that the Nazi party was most probably the party that you had to be fearful of, right? And this is a good example of basically how many of them actually look like as they were marching around the streets of Germany. And I think if you were a citizen during that period of time and looking at what Adolf Hitler was doing with the SA or the stormtroopers, you would then realize that this was a person who could possibly bring order, lawfulness back to German society, something that the Weimar Republic was not doing. However, the SS, Now, the SS was Hitler's elite personal bodyguards, and they were there basically to do the things that the stormtroopers couldn't do. Let me again just pull up another site for you. All right, and this is from historyhit.com. All right, so let me just maximize this for you. Another good, useful website resource that you might want to visit because it provides lots of interesting articles. So what was the difference between the Nazi SA and the Nazi SS? Can't pronounce the German words correctly. I'm sure maybe you could do better, right? But each was created with a purpose, which changed as the Nazis rose to power. So what was the difference? Let's start with the SA. Now, the SA began in 1921 by Adolf Hitler, and the majority of early members were actually made up of disgruntled former soldiers who fought during World War One. The SA worked as a paramilitary force which worked mainly to intimidate political rivals during the early rise of the Nazi Party. So this is the key point that you would like to raise whenever you bring up the idea of the stormtroopers. All right, their main job was to intimidate other political rivals, other parties, and they were often known as the stormtroopers or the brown shirts because of their uniform. They were led by Ernst Röhm, all right, from 1931 to 1934. If you have read the chapter ahead, you will understand that the SAs eventually will get purged in what we call the Night of the Long Knives. Now, this is something that we'll cover in the later part of the chapter. Okay, moving on. What is important is to understand that the paramilitary force was important because it gave Hitler another way to basically control German society, right? Now, how about the SS? Now, the SS uh, was basically the private bodyguards of Adolf Hitler. And over time, they would actually replace the SA and become the superior paramilitary force in Nazi Germany. And this force was under control by Heinrich Himmler and answered directly to Adolf Hitler himself. So a very elite unit of soldiers, all right, if you call them, or bodyguards that really did whatever Adolf Hitler directed or commanded them to do. Now the SS would become very, very popular, recognizable by their black uniforms, especially when we talk about the Jewish Holocaust. An interesting fact, which I didn't know as well, was that the collar of these uniforms had the two runic S, right? So which look like lightning bolts. So how do you know if you belong to the SS? You realize that they have this uniform here, if you can see, and this portion right here. Hopefully you can see where my mouse cursor is. You can see this symbol and the helmet. It's two lightning bolts, a little bit like Harry Potter, right? And another two lightning bolts here at the collars. So if you see a soldier wearing a black garment, followed by having the lightning symbols, you're most probably looking at the SS. Okay. Other recognizable insignias include the Death Head badges, as well as the Silver Daggers, right? So these are the other different divisions in the SS. So in its early beginnings, they were the personal bodyguards of Hitler and other Nazi parties, but later began to expand quickly in size, all right, as well as responsibility. They will later be known as the Gestapo, in charge of basically various police forces. And they also oversaw the intelligence department. What else? They were Hitler's bodyguards. They were administrators of the concentration camps and death camps. And they were also the elite combat troops that were sent to the front lines. So in essence, I think basically the SS became the more recognizable army unit or paramilitary wing under Adolf Hitler. But going back to it, what you need to understand is that Hitler established both of them, right? The SA and the SS, as a greater means by which to control German society. So again, a quick recap. The SA were often called the brown shirts. They were ones in brown. Their main job was to intimidate, all right, okay, other political parties. Whereas the SS were black in uniform, and they were the ones who did a greater variety of jobs after the fall of the SA. Now, in addition to reorganizing the Nazi Party by having the youth wing and the SS and the SA, He also started to use propaganda, and in particular, appointment of what we call Joseph Goebbels as the Minister of Propaganda, and aggressively used propaganda to promote a certain point of view. And this is when you saw, just like Joseph Stalin, the creation of posters, the use of radios, the use of television, the use of movies, even the mass use of his speeches as a means basically to uh, convince the Germans of a certain ideology that he would like them to believe in. So, as a quick recap, what I've covered so far is that Hitler rose to power on the back of two abilities. All right, the first was his charisma and his oratorical skills, and the second was his ability to reorganize the Nazi Party. So we'll take a short 5-minute break now before we go on to the last 3 pointers. All right, thank you.